Korean history is a struggle for independence. Invasions from China and Japan were common. For 5 centuries, an independent Korea was ruled by the Joseon Dynasty. This was a royal dictatorship that ruled with an iron hand, but they were Koreans who protected Korea. In the 19th century, Western imperial powers prowled the region looking for riches and territory. They established treaty ports throughout China from where their corporations and missionaries could safely operate. But this influence caused turmoil in China. French missionaries were allowed to preach in Korea for several years, but this caused unrest among the peasants. In the spring of 1866, French missionaries were banned, and 9 were executed by the Korean government for subversion. After the French experience, Korean rulers now had zero interest in foreigners seeking to trade and teach. Foreign ships often arrived to trade, but were politely turned away. In July 1866, a heavily armed American merchant ship refused to accept rejection. This was the General Sherman, a Civil War-era gunboat that continued up a Korean river after being denied permission. Its crew kidnapped Korean emissaries and fired guns at villages that seemed hostile. Some researchers believe the ship was a raider, seeking to steal gold and treasures rather than peacefully trading. The Sherman became stuck in shallow waters and was attacked by Koreans in small fireboats, who managed to set it afire. All the crew were killed and the ship sunk, with the loss of 4 American lives. Later that year, French forces arrived to punish Korea for killing its missionaries. They attacked Korea's Ganghwa Island near present-day Incheon. This was a fortified area that blocked river access to the Joseon capital of Hanyang, now known as Seoul. The French landing force fought for 6 weeks to seize several fortifications and looted 23 boxes of silver and gold. They departed after killing several hundred Koreans in battle, which reinforced Korea's determination to reject foreign trade and influence. In the 19th century, the United States was keen to establish trading relations in East Asia. The American Asiatic Squadron roamed the region to support these efforts. In 1871, the United States decided it would try to establish relations with Korea using a show of force. An expedition comprised of 5 U.S. Navy ships consisting of about 500 sailors and 100 Marines embarked aboard 5 warships: the USS Colorado, Alaska, Palos, Monocacy, and Benicia. Embarked aboard the Colorado were Rear Admiral John Rodgers and Frederick F. Lowe, the United States ambassador to China. This fleet arrived at the mouth of the Saline River near Ganghwa Island, whose fortifications had been rebuilt after the French attack 5 years earlier. Korean officials boarded the Colorado, but Ambassador Lowe refused to meet with them. However, the Americans assured these Koreans that their intentions were peaceful. On June 1st, the 2 smallest ships, the USS Monocacy and Palos, headed 2 miles upriver and approached the fortifications on Ganghwa Island. The American ships saw a huge banner marked with Korean characters, indicating the presence of a Korean general. As the Americans came close, the Koreans opened fire on the Palos, causing no damage. The American ships returned fire on the forts with their larger 8- and 9-inch guns and steamed back to sea. Admiral Rodgers and Ambassador Lowe convened a war council to discuss options. They sent the Koreans an ultimatum to start trade negotiations within 10 days. However, the Koreans knew that 5 large warships had not arrived to survey their waters, so waited for an attack. The American plan called for a force of about 650 sailors and Marines to land with 7 field guns, shown at the spot as the Marine Rideau. This map was drawn after these battles, so American names describe locations. Most of the attacking force would come from the Colorado and the other 2 larger ships, while the smaller Shadow Draft Palos and Monocacy provided gunfire support to the American ground force advancing up the river in landing boats. The attack began the morning of June 10th after the American landing force assembled ashore. The big American guns demolished the first defensive outpost, what they called a mud fort. Marines and sailors shot Korean survivors using their longer range and more accurate rifles. A picture was taken of the victorious Americans atop the hill. The man in the white hat was Navy Lieutenant Hugh McKee, who would be mortally wounded 2 days later. The next day, a second fort was abandoned by the Koreans as American ships blew it apart. On June 12th, American firepower was directed at the main fortifications on Ganghwa Island. The few Korean cannons were small and inaccurate and caused no damage to ships or advancing Americans. The Koreans were armed with obsolete weapons like the matchlock, which could not be reloaded effectively by the time men breached the wall. American sailors and Marines stormed into the fort, where the fighting dissolved into hand-to-hand combat. When it was over, the Korean general was dead, as were his 250 brave soldiers, while the Americans lost only 3. The Korean general's immense yellow personal banner was captured by 2 Marines who were later given the Medal of Honor for their role in the battle. 13 other Medal of Honors were awarded for this combat action, the first ones given for combat on a foreign shore. Although the American forces won a lopsided victory at Ganghwa Island, the result of the expedition was diplomatic failure. The United States' goal had been to sign a trade treaty with the Korean government, but no negotiations took place. Instead, the incident reinforced isolationist attitudes of the Korean rulers and thus kept barriers in place regarding opening trade to Korea. The Asiatic squadron lingered offshore for several days, then steamed away.